This is the Brave New Coin Crypto Conversation, hosted by Andy Pickering.
Hi everyone, Andy Pickering here. I'm your host and welcome to the Crypto Conversation, a Brave New Coin podcast where we talk to the people building the future in the Bitcoin, blockchain and cryptocurrency space. Good news, team. We have an exciting new sponsor here at the Crypto Conversation, and well, they are perfectly positioned for today's changing investment environment. Because with market volatility so high and the expected returns for stocks and bonds so low, I tend to agree with the analysts at JP Morgan who have declared that alternative assets are no longer optional. And that is good news for those platforms who can provide access to the top alternative asset classes like Masterworks. Yes, Masterworks.io has solidified itself as the platform for investing in contemporary art. And Masterworks is on a mission to democratize art investing, which is a 1.7 trillion asset class. How do they do this? Well, Masterworks is the first platform to make it possible to purchase shares that represent an investment in multi-million-dollar artworks from iconic artists such as Banksy, Kaws, and Basquiat, all at a price point tailored to you. And since 2017, Masterworks has sold a number of iconic artworks, with each returning over 30% net IRR to investors. Legally, I have to follow that with past performance is no guarantee of future results. Now, if you want to get in early, just go to masterworks.art/cryptoconversations to skip their waitlist. That's masterworks.art/cryptoconversations. And you can see important Regulation A disclosures at masterworks.io/CD. And now it's on with the show. My guest today is Medha Parlikar. Medha is the co-founder and CTO at CasperLabs, a blockchain platform built for enterprise adoption. And CasperLabs, the mission at Casper is to lead the era of distributed computing by giving any organization access to state-of-the-art blockchain technologies and services. Welcome to the show, Medha.
Thank you so much for having me on today. It's my pleasure to be here.
It is my pleasure to have you here, Medha. So, look, let's just do what we always do at the beginning, which is allow you to please introduce yourself. You appear to be a fascinating woman with a long and rich history in tech. So, yeah, please give us some of the highlights.
Oh, gosh. So, I'm the CTO and one of the co-founders of CasperLabs, and we're a company that built the public Casper protocol. And now we're working with enterprises to help them go live using, this wonderful blockchain technology that we've built. And before that, I, got into technology in the early 80s. My dad had me building computers in our basement and debugging computer programs. And then, when the dot-com boom started, when the internet kind of, started coming into its own, I became involved. I came back to technology, actually. I took a bit of a break from it and started working at large software companies. And I learned a lot about Web 2, what we know as these dynamic web pages, like what we talk about Facebook or, non-mobile applications, but very much allows you to create your own kind of content on the web, these kinds of systems and applications. And then, came into blockchain in 2017.
Well, that's actually been I suppose it's been kind of a recurring theme recently here on the Crypto Conversation podcast, Medha, and I'm sure you'll very much relate to it. But the transition from Web 1 then to Web 2 and now, of course, to Web 3. And look, you're one of these people who's obviously been around to see much of the development of the early web and then Web 2. And of course, now you're perfectly positioned for Web 3. So yeah, just before we dig into CasperLabs, love to kind of understand how you think about these big transitions and what you've been observing.
So I do see a lot of patterns between, what happened in Web 1 and then the emergence of Web 2 and now the emergence of blockchain technology in terms of the way adoption happens, the adoption curve, if you will, and the investment curve. And I see a lot of similarities around the dot-com boom. There was a lot of hype, I would say, in the early days of the internet, where even in the stock market, I remember seeing companies go through this, massive upswing in their stocks just because they launched a website, right? It was just a one website, nothing special there. And I think we've seen the same thing happen in blockchain technology. We saw it certainly around Web 2. And I think this will actually normalize over time. And the greatest value creation is still very much ahead of us, right? I think and it'll take some time. I see this as a 10 to 20 year trend of like mainstream adoption of blockchain tech.
Yes, indeed. And you're exactly right. That's kind of how markets work. All this fresh new capital does tend to rush in, chasing the shiny new thing, and some of those things don't always work out. But then the proverbial phoenix rises from the ashes, and we get these incredible new companies, brands, and protocols, and the next cycle begins. And we're sort of I suppose they're a little bit at the moment. So love to hear a little bit about CasperLabs itself, then Medha. What's the origin story?
The interesting story. So the co-founders and myself all saw a need for an enterprise-focused blockchain. When we evaluated the landscape, it became clear that there wasn't a company that had built a blockchain that was then well-suited or well-structured or well-positioned to then help enterprises adopt technology. We foreshadowed that enterprises will be very eager to adopt this technology because it can provide fantastic savings and much more confidence and much more trust, and then processes can get a lot simplified, right, when you use something like blockchain technology to build trust upon. And we just didn't see a product or a company structured to do that. So that's what prompted us to found CasperLabs in October of 2018.
Yes, indeed. And so how fast is the team growing? Give us a little bit of an idea of a sense of the scale of the company, I guess. How many people are involved, and how many different teams have you got? What's going on?
So the company itself, CasperLabs, is about 75 employees at the moment, and a majority of those are developers. So we have a team of over 40 engineers that are working in the product and technology organization. And broadly speaking, we have the core protocol developers that are focused on providing engineering services to the Casper Association and the public community of the Casper Network. And then we have a group of individuals there that are focused on building out what we call ecosystemic contracts. These are smart contracts, or working with Fortune 500 and enterprises to build out their bespoke smart contracts against the Casper Network. And we have a team of project managers and solution architects that also support those initiatives.
Absolutely. And we'll talk us through some of the different use cases that Casper is targeting then, and also be worth understanding what you mean specifically by enterprise. I mean, we know what an enterprise blockchain is, but so if we talk use cases, maybe use any kind of examples of how different use cases can help different enterprise sectors, if you like.
So some of the interesting applications of blockchain technology we're really seeing primarily focused around a trust layer, right? So guarantees, you want to get some guarantees around some information or data that's being put on the blockchain. So that's one way to think about it. A great example is, intellectual property, right? So intellectual property is all public knowledge, it's all in the public domain, but who owns a piece of intellectual property is not well understood, it's poorly understood. So we partnered with a company. They implemented an NFT marketplace based on patents, right? And so NFT technology really goes beyond collectibles, in our opinion, right? Because I see NFTs as a fantastic representation of the real world around us. And in business and in our lives, everything seems to have a life cycle. And so you can now attach these things, these items, and in this case, it's intellectual property, to an NFT, and then you can pass that NFT through a life cycle in buying, selling, trading, bundling, packaging. These are all functions that you can attach to an NFT, which is then tied to a unique thing. In this case, it'd be a patent. Similarly, we also partnered with Metacask. Metacask actually has a rare whiskey cask auction and marketplace. that allows for the buying and trading and selling of rare whiskey casks. And so these are fantastic investments until the time that they're bottled. And if purveyors want to, buy and sell these, collectors can certainly buy and sell and hold these assets. And they're represented by an NFT on the Casper blockchain, which then tracks your ownership of the cask. They also use auction technology. So you no longer need to trust the auctioneer. You can just trust the blockchain to carry out the auction as per the code on the blockchain. So this is a great way to get price discovery around items you would otherwise not be able to get price discovery for, because you can offer the rare whiskey cask to a significantly larger audience than would otherwise be possible. These are just a few examples that are already running on the public protocol. We're also in talks with companies around doing interesting things around, personally identifiable information. And, as you know, financial institutions have a lot of risk whenever we give them our private information. They have a responsibility to be stewards of that information. And they like the idea very much of not necessarily exposing any of that information to their internal teams, but rather using tokenizing or creating NFTs for the customer, and then having certain approval levels for each of those customers. So then you can get some guarantees around a person's compliance status, just by trusting the token on the blockchain instead of having to look at all of the information relating to that customer. These are some of the examples that we're working on.
Yeah, NFTs are so interesting, Medha, and obviously NFTs have had I suppose a kind of early boom cycle already. And look, I love NFTs myself. I've got a few different NFTs, and there's a few different communities I'm involved in, and I can see already, people always talk about how quickly a crypto moves, right, compared to, I suppose, the traditional or legacy financial system. And then, within crypto, there are, the different subsectors and, Web3, metaverse, or NFTs. And you can see NFTs are moving so quickly. But at the same time, there's a lot of, I suppose, low effort projects. There's a lot of scammers out there, but there are some builders and communities doing incredible things, I think, with NFTs. What are your thoughts on how how quickly this starts to play out, and we start to get, firstly, you can see the mainstream adoption, a fairly easy path to mainstream adoption will happen through the likes of your Adidas and Nike and even McDonald's, Starbucks, those sort of big everyday brands. They're already dabbling in NFTs. So you can see that sort of plays quite a significant role in legitimizing the industry. But there's also still significant barriers to entry for just, I suppose, mainstream users, because there's a bit of a knowledge gap, that there's a bit of a learning curve, and there's all these misconceptions around crypto and NFTs that people have to get over, if you like. How do you sort of think about all this?
So from my perspective, I think the killer app for blockchain is going to be a universal wallet. I think universal wallet technology that's very easy for the end user to use, so that they don't necessarily have to contend with all of the vagaries or complexities, if you will, of public-private key infrastructure. So I see a universal wallet technology being super important to make everything a lot easier, right? In terms, without compromising security, right? So you need some kind of universal wallet tech that's going to help with that. I think also, I think we've seen the initial boom cycle and a lot of excitement coming in around digital collectibles with NFTs. But like I said, I think that's just the very early tranche of excitement. I think the longer term use cases around coupons, around tickets, is still to be explored. And I know that there's companies that are actively working on this. And it'll come to a place where, if we get the wallet technology kind of locked and loaded, where it'll become very, very ubiquitous, right? And what's really interesting about Casper's NFTs is that we offer upgradable NFTs. So today, my NFT can probably just do one or two things, but in the future, companies could, if they use Casper-based NFTs, they can go ahead and upgrade those NFTs and offer new functions and new services and new capabilities to the existing NFT contracts without having to, burn all the NFTs and reissue them. This is like a core difference between what we built for enterprise vis-a-vis the typical public layer one blockchains you see out there, because we we believe that the history should be immutable, but the future is unwritten. So whilst an older version of the NFT contract provided some capabilities, it's obviously possible to either enhance or upgrade or modify the contract to offer new capabilities, right? Depending on a new partnership is being reached, or there's an innovation or an idea about something new that the community could benefit from owning this NFT, and you want to actually add that into the core capability of the contract. You can do this with Casper.
I haven't heard that quote before. The history should be immutable, but the future is unwritten. That is a delicious turn of phrase. Is that yours? Is that Casper's, or is that a blockchain phrase I haven't heard before?
No, that's definitely mine. It's something that we believe in very strongly, right? And I think it's a great representation of the real world, right? This is how life is, right? We don't know what tomorrow holds, and we need to maintain some flexibility so we can adapt and change and grow with that. We believe Casper contracts should do the same thing, or blockchain contracts. I believe there is a place for immutable contracts. The entire DeFi boom, you need to have some guarantees around DeFi contracts, and I understand the reasoning for it. And don't get me wrong, Casper supports that modality as well. But we believe that overwhelmingly, the use of all software needs to be updatable and modifiable. And so we applied that to our contracts as well in Casper.
Well, it makes perfect sense to me, Medha, because for many of the different capabilities and functionalities that we hope that NFTs will unlock, then, you can think about it as kind of this just incredible digital game, really. And part of that digital game is that there are upgrades, there are power-ups, there are level-ups. And, as we've talked about, crypto moving so fast, you don't know what you don't know because the future is unwritten. So, of course, we need to adapt and evolve as we go. Yes.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more.
So in terms of then, if different enterprise companies or brands, they want to start working with Casper, how does this how do these relationships work? Do you have kind of business managers that go and set up meetings with people, and I'm sure there'll be long, painful explanations and negotiations, but that's part of doing business. I'd just like to get a sense of how this how the enterprise scene works.
Indeed. So we do have folks that manage those relationships and work with the enterprises closely. We have also white glove service of solution architects and support individuals and training teams. So a lot of enterprises require training and workshops and ideation. So we would sit down with an enterprise and walk through their business and understand what it is they do, and then design a bespoke or special blockchain implementation for them to solve some very specific, problems that they have in their business. And blockchain should be looked as a disruptive technology, right? So, and enterprises are slow to disrupt their technology. We believe that you can take an incremental approach with Casper. That's one of the things that I think makes us very unique, is that the Casper system will actually integrate into an existing application stack or an existing information technology infrastructure. So you don't have to tear out what you've already built to add in blockchain. You can just add it in incrementally. And a lot of the other public protocols are very, tear out and replace kind of thinking. And Casper takes a very different approach. That's not how we see enterprise adopting. It's always very incremental. It's always, we'll try this first use case, get that successful, and then we can look at additional use cases. So they definitely come in with a roadmap of things that they'd like to see, but they start with the simplest use case, get comfortable with the technology, and then look at subsequent use cases on top of that.
Sure. And how does Casper think of, I suppose, our future multi-chain world? Because every protocol CTO has a kind of a different vision for the future. Most people now seem to accept that future will be some kind of interoperable multi-chain future. But there's still for example, the Bitcoin conference in Miami is happening right now. There's still a big Bitcoin scene, and then there's Ethereum and the kind of smart contract, different platforms. How do you think about this evolving multi-chain world?
I do see a multi-chain world, 100%. Blockchain is ultimately a very constrained resource. You have one shared virtual machine or global state, if you will, across the entire network. And so by being a constrained resource, it seems only reasonable that we would need, in order to have enough computation to meet everybody's need, that there would be multiple chains that do that. And I think the chains will become differentiated in terms of their use case. So there'll be a predominant use case that will probably emerge for each of the chains. With interoperabilities, this is an interesting topic because each of the blockchains right now have very different, how do I want to put it, modalities of communicating, right? They're different enough to where if you integrate with one blockchain, then now integrating with another blockchain is almost an entirely new lift. It's like you're integrating with a brand new system. And so I question this notion of interoperability when I hear people tell me, well, we want to be chain agnostic. And to me, that means that you would need to have, it's kind of like trying to write an application that works on Mac and Windows, right? I still feel like if I use Microsoft Word on Macintosh and I use Microsoft Word on Windows, they really aren't the same, right? And so I see interoperability very similar to that. Like, you still don't have a single application that will run across every single platform, right? Under the hood, there's literally 2 or 3 different implementations of that application. So you may have an app for Android and you'll have an app for iPhone, and maybe the same app, but underneath there's 2 layers of things, like 2 different software implementations, one for each platform. I think the same thing is, we're talking about the same thing when you talk about interoperability. So it's going to be really up to the application developers if they want to take on the overhead, and if there's a value proposition, if it's valuable for them to actually interop with multiple blockchains. And I think they're looking at it more from reducing their risk by not putting all their eggs in one blockchain basket, if you will. I think that's probably the biggest argument for it.
Yes, indeed, Medha, that does make sense. All right, well, just before we go to the break, let's just finish off on CasperLabs and the Casper Network. Anything else you want to share in terms of, I suppose, the product roadmap, what you guys have got coming up, and tell people where they should go if they're interested to learn more about CasperLabs and what you guys are building?
Oh, yeah. So we have a very exciting year ahead of us in 2022. We'll be performing the first major upgrade of the Casper protocol by the year end. And we will have some really exciting new features, including contracts that will be able to stake the network and new DeFi primitives that we're very excited about that we'll be releasing by Q3, Q4. And if you want to learn more about the protocol information is at casper.network. And the company I work for is CasperLabs.io. So check us out. We'd love to help you out.
All right. Well, let's go to a very quick break and then we'll come back. We'll have some fun. We'll finish off and we'll run Medha through the very famous Crypto Conversation hot take round.
Here's what's being said about Masterworks.
My name is Jacob N. I'm from Long Island, and I've invested over $73,000 with Masterworks. My portfolio performance just wasn't cutting it. I researched all these alternative investments, like crypto and NFTs, but they didn't make sense to me. Then I read about Masterworks in Forbes, and I signed up right away. And now you can too. Thanks, Masterworks.
Get VIP access at masterworks.io and use promo code JACOB. See important disclosures at masterworks.io/DC.
All right, we're back and I'm with Medha Parlikar. Medha is the co-founder and CTO at CasperLabs, building the Casper Network, the Casper protocol blockchain built for enterprise adoption, as we've heard. And Medha, you may or may not know, but I like to finish each podcast with a very quick round of Crypto Conversation hot takes. Are you up for it?
Sure, let's go.
All right, so just going to run you through various questions. Just want quick, snappy answers, hot take style. I'm sure this will you'll figure it out. But Medha, we've discussed this actually. But first question is, where would you say you sit on the Bitcoin maximalist to multi-chain opportunist spectrum?
Oh, I believe in Bitcoin. But I also believe in a multi-chain verse. So I would say squarely in the middle. I think there's room for all.
Absolutely. There's room for all. Very good. All right. Well, Meta, what would you say is your firmest conviction, crypto opinion?
Firmest conviction, crypto opinion. I think the only constant thing in this world is change. So I think as a crypto community, we need to be ready to adapt and change. And gosh, I want to say grow up a little bit. So yeah. I'd like for us to have fewer Doge coins and fewer Shiba Inu coins and a lot more real applications of the technology. I think it hurts us.
Yeah, I think that's probably fair. Less scammers would be nice too.
Exactly.
All right. Well, Bill Gates famously said that we tend to overestimate what we can accomplish in 2 years and underestimate what we can accomplish in 10. So look, as we've talked about, 10 years in crypto is a very long time indeed. So whatever you like, but blockchain, Web3, enterprise blockchains, what does it look like in 10 years' time?
10 years time, I think we will see a lot more ubiquity around the use of blockchain technology by the masses, by individuals. I think you will see more consumer to consumer type applications appearing through using the blockchain directly. So if you think of a decentralized Airbnb, a decentralized Uber, I think we will see these kinds of applications emerge in the next 10 years and start getting traction.
Makes sense. The flip side of that, of course, is William Gibson, famous sci-fi author. He said that the future is already here. It's just not evenly distributed. With that in mind, Meta, can you think of an example of the future being here right now, but most people just aren't really aware of it?
Yeah, so I definitely think crypto is one of those things, right? So for some of us in the crypto space who get paid in cryptocurrency, right? I was getting paid in Bitcoin in 2017. And I think that absolutely is a representation of the future already being here. People filing their income taxes with, for crypto earnings, already here, already technology available, but the masses definitely don't know about it yet.
Wonderfully said. All right, time to zoom out, time to get weird just for a second. Meta, what do you see as the long-term future for the human race? Do you see a dystopia or utopia?
I'm the perennial optimist. I see a utopia. I firmly believe that in humankind's ability to always innovate and find new and wonderful ways to eke out more resources so that we can have a brighter and better future. And I believe that the world, in terms of when you zoom out, I think that in human history, this has been the most peaceful and wonderful existence for humankind if you zoom out through our 10 or 20 or 50,000 years of human history. So I'm definitely thinking utopia.
Nice. Like to hear it. All right. Finally, Meta, what is your favorite science fiction book, film, TV show, or universe?
Oh man, I am a traditional. I'm a typical nerd in that way. So, growing up, I was definitely a Star Trek junkie. So I would have to say Star Trek and Star Wars. Like those are my two favorites.
A traditionalist. I like it.
Yes, for sure.
All right. Thank you so much for coming on the show today. Meta, nothing else to say really except hand the metaphorical microphone back to your good self. Please tell the people where they can find you on Twitter or wherever you like to hang out on the internet. And also, again, just where people should go to learn more about CasperLabs.
You can follow me on Twitter at @mparlikar, MPARLIKAR. And you can learn more about our company at CasperLabs.io and the Casper Network at Casper.network. Thanks so much.
Awesome. All the best and bye for now.
Bye-bye.
All right, there you go. That was Meta from Casper Labs. Hope you enjoyed that. Nice, short, sweet podcast today. Interesting times in the world. Have you been watching the Bitcoin conference over in Miami? That's happening at the moment. Saw some headlines this morning. I think Samson Mow has announced a new company called Jan3, I think, based on the date that Satoshi first launched the Bitcoin blockchain. And so Samson's new company is all about trying to encourage nation-state Bitcoin adoption. So be interesting to keep an eye on his announcements and developments. I think that was the biggest news out today. Also, Jack Mallers talking about Strike and integrating with Shopify and a few other things. But I have to get back on Twitter and see what's going on. So yeah. Anyway, thank you very much for listening. You have reached the end of the show. Please don't forget to subscribe to the Crypto Conversation podcast and whatever podcast app you are using. Give us a nice 5-star rating in Apple Podcasts or on Apple iTunes. Thanks for listening. Bye for now. This was the Crypto Conversation for Brave and New Coin.